The UK construction industry is responsible for all infrastructure in the UK, from our smallest flats to our roads, railway networks and our skyscrapers. Construction is one of the UK's biggest economic drivers, contributing to 6.2% to the UK gross value added. Construction has a significant role to play in the UK's aim to be net zero by 2050, with the retrofitting of older buildings and greener construction methods used in new construction projects being a significant factor towards creating a greener UK. We can see that construction is a key sector in the UK, and this sector needs skills to grow. Our local skills improvement plan analysis noted construction as the sector experiencing the most skills gaps across the UK. In particular, we found gaps in traditional trades, green skills including retrofit, and digital skills. To continue growth in this valuable sector, we need to ensure we have the skills required for the present and the future. We have a lot of work to do to get the skills we need. Employers and providers have noted that an increase in collaboration and engagement between employers and providers helps ensure we are meeting unique skills needs for each local area. Employers can share the skills gaps present in their industry, make clear the exact skills they need, support with careers advice and guidance, and even potentially supporting creating provision alongside training providers. Today we have Steve Plumstead from Kirklees College and Paul Skitt from Flannery Plant. They've collaborated to boost construction skills in Kirklees, and we're here to explore how they've made this collaboration work. So welcome, guys. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Even though I've already just introduced you, go ahead and do it yourselves.
That's as well. Do you want to go first, Pat?
So my name's Paul Skitt. I'm the Education and Skills Director at Flannery Plant.
And my name's Steve Plumstead. I'm the Director for Curriculum for Construction, Land-Based and Engineering at Kirklees College.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys, and welcome to City and Guilds. Thank you so much for coming to join us today.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's really great to have you because, as I said earlier on, one of the things we've noted in the local skills improvement plans is that construction skills needs across the country is a growing need, and we've also got, we know, a population of people already working in construction who are coming up for retirement, and we're not replacing, I think, enough young people into what is actually becoming, or has already become, a really fascinating sector. And there's a lot of outdated thinking about what construction skills and what working in construction is all about. So we want to discuss that with you today. I was talking to Steve about that earlier on. But first of all, I'd like to ask a few questions about what prompted the collaboration between Kirklees and between Flannery to address the required skills needs in the local area. Who wants to go first on that one?
Well, it's kind of evolved, really. I mean, I think Paul reached out, over about 18 months ago?
18 months, 20 months ago.
Yeah, about 20 months ago. Just to come in and talk to the students, promote what opportunities there are in the plant sector and the infrastructure sector, and things were just pretty much snowball from there. Rather than just coming to do a talk, we've actually set about working on a couple of projects together now, which is really sort of going to benefit not only the local economy but the regional economy as well.
Yeah, I think we reached out. I think it's really important for employers and the FE sector and the wider education sector to collaborate and connect together, particularly with the skills and employment shortage that you're referring to. So, we don't see. I think we're only going to solve some of these problems and find solutions if we work together and connect together. So, I think when we reach out to the education sector, it's very much how can we work together? There's no sort of set parameters, but then once you start to build that relationship, then you can then start to work on some specific projects together. And I think from a sort of civils and plant point of view, and it's not so much within the FE sector, but in the UK, when you think of construction and infrastructure, you tend to think of the trades, and you might think of building services, sort of plumbing, electrical, but you don't think of plant and civil technicians and groundworks. And I think, so as employers, we've been trying to go out to the education system and say, look, these jobs are here. You can be a machine driver and earn good money, and I guess it's just trying to articulate what the types of jobs there are, and I'm sure we'll come on to some of the digital and green jobs that are coming out of the sector later on in the podcast. But I think we just wanted to try and see how we could work together, and it's sort of it's blossomed and materialised into some tangible projects, which is great, and which will be great for the college, great for Flannery, definitely. But also great for more importantly, the residents that live in that Huddersfield area and Kirklees area. They're going to get good jobs out of our collaboration, I hope. So.
Yeah, and it's vital for us because it's very difficult to start new provision as a college unless we've got backing and we know that there's going to be some sort of infrastructure, for want of a better pun there, and support from major stakeholders like Flannery's. In Huddersfield, well, particularly within Yorkshire, we've got the TIU upgrade, which is a massive project, and that's linked for the next few years. So.
You've got the Drax power station.
Yeah,
you've got you've got utilities, you've got that transport bit, you've got all the national highways stuff, and I think you start to look at that, and you know,
a little project start to go. Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and
they're just tiny. They're just tiny projects,
take
aren't
all
they?
the world, we're fine.
I mean, and that's where plant comes into it, because all these projects, if you haven't got, you're going to have plant machinery on these projects. All these projects is going to start and end with plant machinery, and that's why. The skills hub that we're collaborating on, it will be wider than just plant, and that's where Flannery's and Kirklees can engage the rest of the supply chain to then have a full sort of civils provision. But the starting point will be to have a plant skills hub, and we hope to have that up and running by the end of the year, or certainly early next year, and that's 18-20 months in the making. But we've identified the land. We've got we've got a mobile classroom which will come on to. I'm probably giving away all the rest of the podcast.
You're giving away the crown jewels.
I think actually there's some of the key things we've identified and we're working on, and it's going to happen, isn't it? It's just a case of when.
And I think that's one of the things that as we started talking, and this was I think why myself and Paul connected so well, is that we didn't really have expectations. When we first sat down, we had a cup of tea, didn't we? You know what I mean?
And a pot pie.
And a pot pie, of course we did. But that's just how we do. That's how we I think that's how real business works. We didn't sort of set out with the kind of formal agendas and start thinking about you hate going to meetings where somebody has to action something. This was honest dialogue, which you very rarely get with some major stakeholders, and I welcomed it with open arms. So
and that's sort of how it works, though, in terms of you're building that relationship. We've both been both parties have been incredibly responsive, and that's what it is. There was no set agendas. It's just how can we work in partnership? How can we've got some mutually beneficial priorities. How can we work together? And I'd say Steve and I probably talk once a week. And it
was a pretty dangerous combination. Put us two together, we got going.
But that's how you get things moving. That's how you get things moving.
Like, we can do this, but we can do this, and we can do that. What happens if we do this here as well? And it really sort of did manifest itself into something that's going to be, I think, it's going to be really special for.
It
for
sounds amazing. I mean, I think the thing that came over there where you were both saying is that you sat down and you didn't have an agenda. You didn't go in thinking, actually, this is what we want to get out of it. You went in thinking, we've got some problems to solve here, and this is what we hear from a lot of our employers is we've got problems to solve. We're not quite sure how we solve them, but I think those conversations with providers where you can sit down with someone who understands and who will come up by the sound of it with ideas that might help you resolve some of those issues. So I mean, what have you've talked already a lot about some of the things that you've accomplished and what you've got planned. So what are some of the projects that you've already had in play, and what have you accomplished so far?
Well, to begin with, it was just through the dialogue we were having, things just kind of fell in his lap, and there's obviously the local skills improvement fund. Now we were successful in getting some funding for digital training unit.
Great.
Okay, and what we quickly realised that actually if we get some major stakeholders, and in terms of obviously Flannery's involved, that can really be something special. But also we've actually got the local council that are backing this as well. So we've got like that sort of triangle of people that are really key and central to actually making this happen. It really just sort of fell into place, didn't it?
Yeah, and that stakeholder engagement's like critical, isn't it? Really, you think about and the digital training unit's interesting because we started off sort of, I guess, with maybe slightly more limited expectations. We thought we'd have a smaller mobile training unit, and that's turned into a bloody great big trailer now that's probably going to be the size of half a Yorkshire.
A couple of acres, it's fine.
And that's going to be it's like a tripartite agreement between the college, the council, and Flannery, and we'll get TRU involved, and we'll get other supply chain involved, but that's now gone from having don't get me wrong, a very good smaller mobile training unit to something that's going to be quite incredible. I'll show some pictures at the end of it. And I think that's but the LSIP our engagement, and then linked in with the LSIP and the LSIF has helped that become
So
reality.
Were you engaged in the local skills improvement plan conversations? Because I mean, all of that research was done by local chambers of commerce and various other organisations. And was that what joined you two up?
It wasn't what joined us up. And look, from an LSIP point of view, Flannery, because we're a national company, we work all over the UK. So I've been heavily involved in the LSIPs within all the regions where we've got major projects.
Oh, right.
So I've been involved in about half a dozen LSIPs. I chair a couple of groups, one in West London and one in Kent and Medway, which is linked to Lower Thames Crossing. So I chair the sort of employer construction groups. So I've been making sure that construction infrastructure is a priority, to be honest, because when they say that it's not a priority, and I'm saying, well, it bloody well is, because we haven't got enough people to deliver.
I was going to say the rest of the economy is not going to work if the infrastructure's not there. How can it not be a priority?
No, but sometimes you get, there are always these sort of little idiosyncrasies. So but I think employers, if they want to influence the agenda, they got to step up and be part of the agenda. So we've heavily been involved. We weren't directly involved in the sort of in the Yorkshire one, but actually when Steve and I first met, one of the first things we started talking about was LSIPs and local skills priorities. Even before thinking about the funding, we were just talking about what essentially what are the local projects happening, what types of jobs you're going to need to fulfil those projects. So that's because we were just having a natter about that. That's how it started. Wasn't it?
And it wasn't just kind of enrichment for us current students. We have all the sort of traditional trades at the college, but enriching that and actually expanding the vision for our students. I mean, our motto is creating opportunities, changing lives. And I see an opportunity, I thought, right, we're going to have that. And it was a case of just sort of thinking, right, okay, let's just think a little bit bigger and think a bit broader to be able to make the best of every ounce of this. Because, we only get funding, FE, I'm not going to get on my high horse, but, it is the most criminally underfunded sector within education, okay? But any funding we can get, we absolutely maximise, and that was one of the key priorities that I had and my team had, that we absolutely make the best of this, because these things come up so rarely.
Yeah, which is a shame, really, because one of the things that was noted in the LSIPs was obviously more engagement between employers and providers, but more and more employers were saying actually what they want is the technical skills. They don't necessarily want the graduates. They want technical skills at levels 2, 3, 4 and 5. That's what they're really, really looking for, because that's going to fill all of those areas, not just in construction, but in construction a lot of those jobs that actually support the rest of the country and the rest of the economy.
Absolutely. And look, and although LSIPs are important, it's about that collaboration and connectivity offline, really. Things are going to happen if you have relationships like Kirklees and Flannery, and actually some of the LSIP stuff's, it's more of I think 70% of it's capex and 30% revenue. Really, when we first got involved, it was about making sure there was more revenue funding to support gaps in technical skills and education, and there still isn't really. I think the LSIPs are great. It'd be really interesting to see what happens with Skills England and how that sort of how that shapes up and how that interacts with the local skills improvement plans. Because although the collaboration and connectivity is good, they're not getting everything right. But that's why we sort of work together and connect, because they're not going to get all these things right. But if you work together and find solutions, then actually that's when you get best practices then rolled out across. And I think that's gonna start to happen. And
we didn't put any time pressure on ourselves, did we? In terms of what we were doing. Obviously, with the LSIP funding, there's obviously sort of key milestones that we've got to hit, which again we've been working closely with, but again, we're maximising everything we can get out of this project, haven't we?
Absolutely, and it's about getting your key decision makers on board as well. You've got your principal on board early doors, and I've been obviously talking to Patrick Flannery, the MD of Flannery's, about this from the start. And you need that. When we're having these discussions, there's no point us having these discussions if we haven't got the key decision makers backing it, and that's like with everything, isn't it? But that's what we ensure when we're going into these sorts of discussions, that when opportunities for projects arise, and actually you got key backing from the key decision makers. Because if we're going to enter into this partnership and have a skills hub, which we're going to do, we want it to be sustainable and in the long term. We don't want it to be a flash in the pan. This is about 10, 15 years, local legacy, getting local people into local jobs.
That's fantastic. So what's the skills hub going to do?
Well, I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So I mean, for me, it's not only providing an entry point into the plant and civil sector. I mean, that is one of the key markers, I think, really. If you look at FE, any college really, when you're setting up new provision, particularly some with a sort of high value capital expenditure we're going to need to be able to do that, it's so limiting. And we're actually in a really fortunate position that, you know, we have got so many local businesses that are reliant on plant, so many other projects that are happening in the regional area, not just like local area, but the regional area. And it gives us that kind of, that opportunity where we can, it's almost like go bigger, can't we? And provide that aspiration for the students. You know, we talk about level 1, level 2, level 3, you know, qualifications. These are really good qualifications, aren't they? You know, to achieve a level 2 or achieve a level 3, that is an absolute milestone for some students.
Yeah.
And to, you know, I think sometimes the FE sector really does, it suffers from that kind of bias.
Yes.
In terms of, you know, let's go to university, go to a graduate, okay. But if you come up through the trades, you'll be going to sort of level 5, level 6, level 7 anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and it's having that absolute grounding. Okay, I left school with no qualifications, other than, you know, a few GCSEs, which are still an unsolved mystery. But for the rest of it, you know, I came back to FE, you know, when I was in my 20s. And then I went to do my degree, done my master's degree, done my teaching qualification, done all sorts of other training, you know what I mean? And that's the power of FE, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I was lucky enough to work in FE for sort of 16, 17 years before I worked for Flannery, so I sort of understand the sector, understand the challenges, understand what they can and can't do, really. So I think when we're trying to engage with FE colleges, it helps, because I understand.
Our pain.
Yeah, and I've sort of done in a way, I've done sort of Steve's job in a way. So so it helps that, you know, I sort of know what's realistic, what's achievable, and what isn't.
Yeah,
so again, that's why when we first met, you know, there's no real expectations, but let's see how we can work in partnership. The skills hub, it's certainly going to start off with that sort of plant element, which is about machine drivers, which is definitely level 2. Yeah. But you know, when we're taking on new entrants, we're not interested in where they've come before. What we're interested in is their behaviours. Like, can they turn up on time? Are they reliable? Are they willing to learn? Their technical expertise is going to come out through we're lucky enough to have a direct contract with DFE for skills boot camps. So one of the first things we'll be doing, we'll be delivering plant operator skills boot camps. But I think the longer term ambition is it becomes a wider, a civil skills hub, and then you're going to have the wider supply chain and Kirklees College at the centre of it, delivering a range of technical civils education to support all the projects we're talking about. So, you know, I think the ambition is big, and that's going to be, you know, for us, we have skills hubs across different parts of the country, but for us, that's going to be that, you know, that northern skills hub, building northern powerhouse, really. You know, you've got equidistant between Leeds and Manchester, and all the developments happening
like
around
the middle of it,
and Huddersfield and TRU. So it's strategically it's important,
and it's already generated some success, because you know, we were I think the first college in Yorkshire to actually to run a sector-based work academy.
I wanted to ask this because, I mean, it does seem that obviously, Paul, you've come from an FE background. You've worked your way through it. You seem like you've got a fairly unique relationship, but is it unique? Are there other employers that are doing this, or do you think there's actually not enough of it?
I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough of it. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens. I think it is. You know, probably are in a unique place because of my understanding of the sector, but there will be other people doing my sort of jobs that will understand it. But I think Flannery also, because it's a big company, but it's not your tier 1 contractor. So I think also we have that agility and sort of fleet of foot to just get stuff done. Whereas when you start to get into multi-billion-pound organisations, that whole decision-making process and being agile just becomes a bit harder.
The kind of governance of it.
And the governance of it and making decisions. Whereas I think where it works quite well is because, you know, and I mentioned it about getting decision makers buy-in, but, you know, we're able to have meetings and we've already got approval from, you know, the powers that be in our organisations to then go and just do stuff and get stuff done. So I think we are, you know, I wouldn't say unique, but I think it's we're definitely one of the leading employers to do this type of work, and we do this type of FE engagement across the country. But I'm absolutely sure there's good examples.
I've no doubt of that. But I think, you know, kind of just to you know, sort of recommend Flannery's in terms of what we've done. There hasn't, like I say, initially there wasn't, you know, any expectations, but for us as a college, we get so it can be so laboured when we're trying to set up new initiatives, new curriculum, and I didn't want that. What we wanted to be was actually, okay, let's try this. If it don't work, fine, we'll try something else. And that's the kind of
and just think about it. Just think about it from a capacity and capability point of view. Is that the bottom line is when it comes to plant machinery, we've got 5,500 pieces of plant across the UK. When we're going to set up a skills hub, we need 3 or 4 pieces of plant there, but that's going to be best part of 500,000, 750,000 just for those bits of plant. Now, most colleges are not going to have the capex room to be able to buy it, but then secondly, they're not going to have the capability to be able to do the training. So this is where that partnership works, is that, there's going to be aspects that that Kirklees College are going to be delivering as part of the skills hub. So that's sort of sector-based work academy type stuff. Then, but you'll be doing lots of other different provision, and then we're going to be doing that sort of what I'd call specialist technical, because quite frankly, the FE sector hasn't got the capacity or the capability to do it, and that's why you need that connectivity.
And that agility, like you say, because for us, we're quite fortunate that we've got a bit of a land asset, which I've kind of earmarked. I've put my stake in the ground on that one, I think. But again, the having the capacity to do things like this, we're both in quite a fortunate position.
But there are going to be other employers out there. We know that there's not enough staff, there's not enough young people coming into the construction industry. We know that it's not always seen at the moment as an industry which either has a career path or is something that young people want to do. But the reality is, to achieve what you two are achieving, we need more employers to do it, don't we? But you're saying that actually a lot of larger employers possibly aren't agile enough, or maybe they just don't see that it's an important part of what they do.
I think they do it in a way, but do they really understand what can be achieved by really working in partnership? I think they engage, but do they really work? Do they truly work in partnership and understand what can be achieved?
But we need so much more of it if we're going to achieve what we need to achieve.
And it needs to be on this kind of level as well. To have this honest dialogue.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is that employers don't always recognise is that because they think of colleges and schools as part of the education and training provision, which it is undoubtedly. But what it's also the other massive asset is the talent pool of students that they're sitting on, and one of the big things for us is actually the talent pipeline in Kirklees and the Huddersfield area, a lot of it's sitting within Kirklees College, and we want them to work on projects like TOU, don't we? But they don't necessarily know that they can be a machine driver and they could earn whatever, £35,000-40,000 as a dumper driver, and so I think employers are doing it, but they just we always feel that look. There's issues and challenges and problems out there. Look, let's be proactive and let's try and solve some of them. We can't do it all by ourselves, but let's try and let's not moan about what's right or wrong with the education system.
What happened?
Let's get on and achieve something.
Yeah, we've only got a couple of hours.
Do a little moaning about getting some more funding into FE. Definitely.
No, we do, and we're both lobbied together in terms of local authorities and national government about it, and we'll continue to do that. But I think it's just about us being proactive and making stuff.
Of course it is, and sort of the interesting thing about the vision for the operator hub is that it's not just the plant side of it, because as businesses and companies become more agile, the talent pool within those companies, it goes on to the media managers, the social value managers, the training managers. They need training and they need the upskilling as well. So it's not just a case of we've got we're going to take a 360 operator off the machine and then put him in a classroom. It's going to fail. We've got to do those softer skills and that other training. And we can support that. So that's kind of the balance on the seesaw of how we're going to achieve this.
We were talking about that earlier, weren't we? Because it's not just about encouraging young people into the construction BSE industry. It's also about the current workforce, because construction BSE is changing because of automation and because of technology. The current workforce also needs upskilling. Absolutely. Are you doing any work, and is there enough happening on that front?
Yeah, well, the skills bootcamp's very much focused on both new entrants but also upskilling the existing workforce. So you're upskilling, we might be upskilling existing dump truck drivers to become excavator drivers, and that's very much project led, because you need a certain amount of machine categories for different projects. So you've got your new entrants coming in, but if your new entrants coming in, you've got to upskill your existing workforce to So even on middle section of HS2, there was a big shortage of dozer drivers, so we specifically did dozer training on our skills boot camps to make sure that they could deliver that project. And then that's where the sort of digital aspect comes in, because machine control is required on dozers and excavators. So then you're using, which is sort of like essentially like semi-automated, machine control, global positioning systems. They're using that digital asset to actually be more efficient at doing your job. So that whole digital side of plant is becoming increasingly important. I mean, Flannery's, just as an example, Flannery's now at each depot have a digital manager, there's a digital division within our group that 4 years ago didn't exist, and it's now a 10 million turnover organisation division within our group now. That 4 years ago we didn't have a digital manager or digital coordinators, and now we have, because of all the telematics linked to the machines, all the data we're using around logistics. So it's that. The industry is moving on and embracing new technology.
The pace of it, though,
and we need to make sure that the education sector and the students know about the jobs that can be had because of it.
That's the problem, isn't it? In terms of actually, and again, this goes back to originally how we actually sort of hooked up, because it is about promoting this to the workforce. The future workforce. We're in August, September now, aren't we? So we've got the new intake of students. They won't have even thought of being a plant operator.
No, I still have conversations with young people who think that construction is still about trades. Yes, there's an element of it.
Be a sparky, be a plumber, be a plasterer. That's it. The biblical trades.
They won't know you can be a machine driver, plant operator, and they won't know what you can earn.
No.
Excavator drivers could be earning, good experienced excavator drivers are earning £60,000-70,000 a year. And people don't realise that.
I'll see you later.
That's the only problem. We're going to schools and colleges to talk about that, and the teachers go,
they don't realise the technology they're going to be using either. Because a lot of the young people coming through college and school now are what we call, they're tech savvy. They don't realise they're going to get to use that in your industry.
An excavator, a Flannery excavator that we have out on site, the average age of that will be 2 years old. National average is about 4 years. But you get into a sort of, if you go and sit in an excavator, it's like getting into a cockpit of a plane. It's not like a rusty old digger. These are highly complex machines that you need. That sometimes are not being effectively utilised because of people's digital skills. So
that's the current workforce training that also
that's the upskilling bit. So you start to think about you've got JCB, Caterpillar, Volvo that are building these machines. Komatsu, these are some of the best manufacturers in the world. So the machines are not rusty old diggers that you see on the site. They are highly complex pieces of kit, and again, it's that articulating that to the workforce of the future to say, actually, did you know that you could do this?
And having the staff that are efficient and productive. They're obviously they're the key challenges for the sector, aren't they? If you're spending so much time upskilling potentially somebody that might not want to be trained, giving me my old dozer and I'll sit on that all day. But that's
it's really interesting, because we've got a productivity report coming out later on in September, and it does talk about the current workforce and the fact that a lot of the current workforce are coming up for retirement. They don't necessarily want to be retrained to use something that's high tech. So what are the challenges there for organisations like Flannery and colleges like Kirklees?
I think it's we've got to remember what it's like for anybody to set foot into a college the first time. When you're doing any kind of training, I was an adult learner. I went back, when I was 21, 22, and it took me nearly a year to get through the door. So that anxiety about retraining and actually taking that big step is massive. And as an FE sector, in terms of how responsive we are to that kind of the social and emotional needs as well, it's massive. For us to be able to encourage people to come back and either retrain or upskill, to do so in an environment where there's no prejudice, there's no kind of anxiety about what happens if you fail. That's the big thing, isn't it, of having that opportunity. And like say, you're going to be with colleagues and people that are all facing that same kind of step and that journey. And it's for us. It's one of the best parts about my job is when you see a learner come in at the start and then you see them leave with that big smile on their face. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, look, and the FE sector is the best in the business at doing that, isn't it? The FE sector, absolutely, for all its issues and challenges, about giving people that second chance, about breaking down barriers for adult learners to go and retrain and to do things. The best in the business is the FE sector. Now, as an employer training provider, that's why that collaboration is going to be important, because we've got a lot to learn from the FE sector on that. I guess how we try to do it is about demonstrating to our existing operators that actually by utilising new technology, that's going to make their life easier, and it's going to make their jobs easier. So actually you're trying to demonstrate that, and actually by doing that you might be able to earn more money by doing things more efficiently. So that's probably what we'll try to do, but we'll definitely need support from the FE sector about how we break down some of those barriers where we've got existing operators that don't want to be upskilled because they're thinking, well, actually, I've been an operator for 35 years. I've been doing very well. Man and boy. Yeah. We've got operators at Flannery's that have been there since. We've got some that are 45 years. Yeah, they've been there, and we're a 52-year-old company. We've got operators that, but by the way, they're the best operators. And when we get big projects, they're the first people to go into those projects.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got 3 questions left, guys, which is some of which we've probably already answered, but Paul can cut and paste stuff left, right and centre, so I'm still going to answer them in case you think you might have missed something. So how did you go about setting up the collaboration and building the relationship?
Well, it goes back to that cup of coffee and a pork pie, doesn't it? It seemed to be, literally it was that. And it wasn't, it just became just more of a conversation rather than something that automatically has expectations. Okay, and we just sort of, you were in the area, you came down, and we showed you our centre, which probably some of the best facilities in the country, and I'll argue that with anybody. But we went from there to, okay, we've got this project coming up. There was another project which didn't quite happen in that Building Heroes thing, but there's things that it's not taking your bat and ball home when things don't work out. Okay, what else can we do? That went from that was quickly apparent. So when just meeting up with Paul and how we sort of had that dialogue, Paul having the experience of the FE sector was a massive benefit.
Yes,
and for us to actually continue that conversation. To get the funding, to actually engage with the council, the SLT on my part, Patrick Flannery on his as well. It was like, whoa, this is ace. This is a wild ride. Is this, and let's all be part of it, because all I saw at the back of it was the benefits. And I didn't think of I'm not saying I didn't think of the risk. We're all quite acutely aware of those, aren't we?
Yeah.
You are as a manager, and that's the way we are, aren't we? But I just knew this was a good thing.
The next question was going to be, what were the pitfalls?
Oh, okay. Pitfalls.
Well, I just link it back to that first question. Though I think one of the things is that having that regular contact, and not having a set agenda about just organic. How can we organically work together, and the partnerships sort of form naturally, and the regular contact then has led us to be able to have that. Develop a relationship essentially, because if you're gonna have two sort of parties together like this that are going to start to invest in things, you need to have trust. And you can probably tell that Steve and I get on pretty well, and that builds trust, because then you're giving and going back to your decision makers when they go, we've done some good stuff with Kirklees College, and this is gonna work. And,
this is going to be a good thing.
Well, and I guess look, the risks are always. I mean, from the pitfalls from our point of view is funding is always linked to that. Funding is always linked to that, and the fact that the college has got AEB funding, and that we've got sort of quite a big direct DFE bootcamp contract. That sort of, so from a revenue point of view, you're sort of mitigating some of that risk. We've worked together to try and access any capital funds available, and I think both. Steve and I are pretty entrepreneurial about that. We're quite good at horizon scanning and finding money to support what we're trying to do.
All the people. No, joking aside, but I think it is that it's for us, and again for us as a college, and this is kind of how myself and my team work, is that we're not just looking at the next 6 months. It is that short, medium, long-term planning, and we've got to do that. I don't think, if I'm honest, the FE sector is brilliant at that. It can be more reactionary. We have all the challenges, staffing, funding, every courses, approvals, all that kind of stuff. But regardless, if you've got kind of a goal, which we sort of had, then everything else can fall by the wayside because you'll overcome that.
And the pitfalls can be, and this is what Steve just said, is that the FE sector can sometimes be a bit slow, and it's got those masters. It's got the Ofsted as its sort of quality master, and it's got the ESFA of its audit master. So I understand why responsiveness can be difficult, because if you're in the middle of audits and Ofsted and all the rest of it, then but because Steve and the team have always been very responsive, and we've been to site a number of times. I brought some other directors down, Aaron and Arnie down.
That was
you came up to us.
That was a bad combination. As soon as we got talking, like, the world was going to change.
World domination.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then you and colleagues came down to our skills hub. We've got our sort of state-of-the-art skills hub at the West Midlands, and I think. And that's where we're when we say we're going to do something, we do it in both parties, and then you could see what we do, we could see what you do, and then that's when I think when you can visualise it and say, right, this is how our plant skills boot camps work, then you're like, because actually when you saw the scale of it, you were impressed, but also you didn't quite actually the size of land you needed to do it. You thought was going to be far bigger.
Yeah, I did actually,
and actually that enabled us to identify some land on your campus to go. Actually, I think we might better use some land you've already got, because we were looking at land outside of the college originally for the skills boot camp.
Yeah, it was looking at partnering up with the local council. So they've got parcels of land, and there's another project which hopefully 2 or 3 years down the line this will actually lead to and benefit. But when sometimes roadblocks come up, some of the land wasn't available, so going down, like I said, Paul says, going down to the operator hub, I just thought, right, that will fit. And it is having that kind of foresight and that vision, because once you look and you can see it visually in your head, I thought, this going to happen. It's got to happen.
So were you able to be more responsive because you had such a good relationship with Flannery and with Paul?
Definitely.
I mean, you were talking about FE's not always as responsive, and we know that there are gates for FE to jump through when it comes to being responsive because of things like Ofsted, because of the fact you only get your funding a year in advance. I can't wait till the ESFA or the government agrees that 3-year funding packet is going to make a huge amount of difference. But were you able to be more responsive because of the fact that you were working with an employer that was willing to say, actually, we can put some money behind this and some resource behind this ourselves? Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that we was apparent, because we weren't talking about the academic year, and it is what I think where colleges do fall down sometimes. We start talking about, yes, you have to sort of be mindful of it, but we weren't sort of saying, right, okay, by September 2024, we need this, that, and we couldn't do that because we knew the size and the scale of this project was really going to sort of test us both, wasn't it? But to be able to sort of go from whatever challenge that we saw to think, right, okay, let's not put a time scale on it, but now we're getting closer to markers that I suppose benchmarks, weren't we, that we need to, this needs to be done by this date. Forget the academic year. I was going to say, so are you a 12-month operation, it just keeps going? I'm 24/7. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we do. That's what industry is. Yes. And we have to do that as FE. We can't be closing down at half terms and thinking everything's going to be fine when we get back. And I think it's important that, Flannery, because we're a national organisation, have got models and examples where we've set these skills hubs up before, and we've engaged well with the FE sector. So, Steve also knew, if you're looking at a risk from a college point of view, he already realises that Flannery have done this before and they've done it successfully, and that we've got a direct contract with DfE, so we're not just sort of some flash in the pan. Not dodgy. Yeah, we're a proper outfit, taking it seriously, trying to get local people into jobs. Our outcomes on the boot camps are really good, and it's not about bums and seats. It's about getting the right people into the right jobs and local people into local jobs. And I think Steve and the team, having visited our major centre, could see that was real. That was real. And it's like, there are risks with these things, but we're lucky. I think one of the things that transformed it a bit, we had a stakeholder engagement meeting at the college with a senior director from TRU was there, from the local authority, obviously ourselves, and a couple of directors from Flannery's, and they were just all the key stakeholders were like,
this is a no-brainer.
Make it happen.
Yeah, just make it happen.
Make it happen.
You know,
That was
when you get the stakeholder, when you get key stakeholders are saying like, well, you know, it's just like make it happen, guys. You know, this needs to happen. Then you also get that confidence that we're on something here, so let's just do it.
Yeah, you know? And you know, when you're involved with stuff like this, you just get a sense of, you know, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we're doing it. You know, we can talk about money, we can talk about sort of funding and all that sort of stuff, benefits to the college and stuff like that. But it's a good thing to do. Yeah. This is a good
the good thing and the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. Yeah.
And just to sort of chalk up Kirklees a bit, and I won't name the other organisations, but we wanted to engage within that area of the north, and I'd gone out to a number of different colleges in the area, and the most responsive were Kirklees College. So, you know, because for us that responsiveness is absolutely key. You know, if you've got some organisations that are not going to be as quick and responsive as we are, then that partnership's going to be difficult straight away.
But what you're achieving is amazing. So I mean, that responsiveness is. Yeah, that's a lesson to be learned, I think, in the FE sector, maybe.
Yeah, I hope so. And, you know, for some of the things, I mean, obviously we engage with CITB. I'm part of the British Association of Construction Heads, so we have dialogue with them as well in terms of, you know, the regional and national picture. So and we were both aware, aren't we, both on a local, regional, national level, what's going on. And I think, you know, when you're seeing the construction sector, I'm not saying in the state that it's in, but it could really be in a mess in a couple of years, and you know, you feel like you're compelled to do something. And for us, yes, we're sort of focusing on our learners in Huddersfield and Kirklees, you know, in Yorkshire as well. But you know, hopefully these guys and girls are going to go national, aren't they, or international?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you know, we set them on that path. No telling where they're going to end up. Yeah, it's a lovely thing to think of.
Yeah, it really is a lovely thing to think of. And we know that obviously not young people are not seeing construction as a particularly attractive option. Listening to you two, it's making it an attractive option for me, and I'm not a young person, as you can see. We conducted a LinkedIn survey recently, and it was taking a look at what people from the construction sector, what the general public thought, what recruiters thought, what colleges and the FE sector thought. What was the biggest barrier to recruitment? And the survey that Paul ran on LinkedIn, it gave a choice of answers that you could pick that you thought might make a difference to encouraging more young people into construction and BSc. And the survey said that utilising apprenticeships was key to filling skills gaps, enhancing school visits was key to filling skills gaps, and more localised collaboration coming second and third respectively. Listening to you talk about your collaboration, I'd say that's probably actually number one by the sound of it. I made a note
that was our number one for us, because it's got to be you've got to come to a local solution. Yes, some of the solutions are the same nationally, but you've got to have that local solution, and the regional FE colleges is one of the best starting points to address that. Definitely.
And your other point there about sort of going into local schools, I mean, that's something we're quite prominent with at Kirklees. Myself and the team, we're going to all the sort of local high schools, and it's encouraging that they are doing construction trades in those schools. But again, like anywhere else, they're struggling to get the staff. But you know, when you're doing a presentation for maybe 100, 120 students, they're all doing construction. You think, oh, I'm going to need a bigger building here. Yeah. You know, and it's great to sort of feel that, and you know, see that kind of that pathway for those learners is being set, and for us now to be thinking, actually, these students might actually be, you know, going into the plant and civil sector.
And I think that collaboration between the FE sector and the employers is starting to change perceptions around construction. I mean, I do a lot of work with the Careers Enterprise Company, you know, chair various groups, and some of the data that's coming out now is because the construction sector is being more proactive in that sort of space, that careers education space. That is starting to turn around perceptions, because, as we keep on saying, is that people's perceptions is that it's a dirty job, it's the trades, it's out on site, muddy boots and all the rest of it. And then, you know, but that's probably about 10% of the jobs. 90% of the jobs are both blue collar and white collar, but actually very different to those jobs, and highly technical jobs. So I think the perceptions of the sector are starting to change, and I think that collaboration piece is critical to that, because you know the reason why, you know, as I said before, we can moan about the education system all we want, but if we're gonna really, you know, access that talent pool and get them converted into our sector, then we need to go out and bang the drum and tell them and articulate those jobs.
And see it.
That's where that mobile solution will come in, because they're going to be on those simulators and they're going to
Well, if they can get a chance, I'll be on it. but that is the point, though, isn't it? Because to get people excited about stuff. Yeah. You can guess that we're pretty excitable anyway, aren't we? But for us to see that kind of interaction with sort of other stakeholders, but other students, other learners and things, it does think, okay, yes, we are doing something right. Okay, we know this is a good thing. We know we'll achieve some great things. So.
It's why I'm so surprised that that collaboration aspect of that poll on LinkedIn came up third. Because talking to you two and listening to you both talking about it, you can see that actually this should be the number one.
I think so.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I had a really nice compliment the other week, actually. He said, "You're not very collegey, are you?" So,
do you know what? I'd add to that, though. Like, I still,
you've got to be. You know what I mean?
Steve isn't very college, but then, I worked in a college for years, and I don't think I'm very collegey.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Because I think it's more about we're trying to make a difference, trying to make something happen, rather than, and
you can put that false pretense character sometimes when you're having conversations and you kind of engaging people. And yes, I can't articulate myself better than I do sometimes when I need to, but this is me, this is Paul, this is how we work, and he's
not mentioned a self-assessment report once since our conversations. Probably put the phone down.
I'm on with them now, actually, at the minute.
Actually, we're doing one.
But again, we can talk about all that the kind of college stuff, but again, it's going back to the root of what we're doing. I say our kind of motto is creating opportunities and changing lives, and that's what we're doing. You live by that, everything else can fall by the wayside. And we know Ofsted will come and go. They'll come and see what we're doing. I'm exceptionally proud of what I do. The college that I work in, the staff that I work with, because I've got an amazing team of people, and that's throughout. From the caretakers right through to the principal. I know nearly I won't say everybody in the college, but I know most people in that college, and I know they're there for the students. That's
and look, that's how the mutual partnership working. So Flannery have now got their own DFE contract skills boot camps, which I've mentioned. We're going to be having our first offset inspection first quarter of next year.
Yeah. So you've got some crash out with some high vis.
But Steve's going to be. Steve's always and I'm getting more FE involved in coming to do mock inspections and helping us with all that stuff, because actually it's the likes of Steve and other colleagues nationally that are going to help Flannery's improve and get a good output. Because I can go to Steve and say, look, this is our provision, and you can just objectively look at it. But you're not going to be. Yes, you'll be constructively critical. Excuse the pun, but you're going to come. You're going to help us.
Yeah,
you're going to say, this is.
And it's about that coming full circle again, isn't it? Actually, education helping the construction sector. Yeah. Because ultimately, if it is again massive partnership on every level. If we've got sort of, Paul's mentioned the supply chain coming to us, well, there's going to be students, for us that might want to do their English and maths. They're going to need to do prevent training. They're potentially going to need to do E&D training. And we can help that and help, inform the sector. So
I can see that the success, not just the success of FE, but actually the success of the UK future workforce is really going to be based around collaboration between employers and the FE sector. If employers want to get the skills that they need into their business, then working in partnership with the FE sector is the way to do it going forward.
Yeah, and I've already been saying to DFE, because I think that they have, even before the election, I think they have been in listening mode, particularly from the employers, because employers are stepping up and doing more. But I think, look, actually there's some really good examples and best practice going on in the UK at the moment. When they set up Skills England, they need to come and talk to the likes of Steve and I, because actually, I think we're real examples of where it happens, where it's happened, and what's working, and actually why can't you can roll this type of collaboration out across the UK? Why not? And
well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So we're waiting for the call, aren't we?
We are actually. Yeah. Kettles on. Come on, catch up.
We're expecting that invite to the House of Commons soon, aren't we? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I think they might let me in.
I don't think they do pork pies, guys.
Oh right, no, not interested. See you later.
I think you might get tea and crumpets or cream tea.
I'll give them a try.
It has been great to have you guys. Just one final question. Is there anything else that either of you would like to say or add in at all before we finish up? Because it's been a really fascinating conversation. But as I say, for me, listening to you both talk, I think going forward, FE and employer collaboration is the way forward to make everything work and to address the skills that we can see coming across multiple sectors. So anything else that you'd like to add in just before we finalise?
I don't know. It's nice to do this in terms of get stakeholder. I'm talking real involvement, not because there's a project that they need to do, not because somebody in Whitehall said you need to do this. Well, this was like Paul said, it's quite an organic relationship that sort of has kind of manifested into something that I know is going to be really good. And the more we do this, and we kind of, take the tie off, take the jacket off, let's just sort of sit down with a cup of tea and talk about what are your real issues. Not, what are the ones that are on paper, not the ones that are in a report somewhere. Talk to me. Yeah. Let's find a way through this, and I think we'll be fine.
Exactly right. And I think, as we've both said throughout the sort of session, is that we're both pretty well connected in our various industries, and and sort of have a feel of what's going on and what's sort of working well. And I think the only thing I'd sort of want to get across is it's talking about sort of Skills England and the LSIPs and all the sort of skills policy stuff that's been happening over the last 5 or 7 years. Some of it's really quite good, but it's just, and it's good conceptually. It's just the way it's been implemented has not always worked well. But what I would say to policymakers now is don't. Sometimes you just need to not reinvent the wheel the whole time. Just sort of let some policies, let them be, and make sure. Let that collaboration happen. Create a framework where you can allow this type of collaboration to happen more often on more occasions. And actually, that's where, because I think success in terms of our skills and employment challenges as a country, the success lies in the education system and employers working well together. So that would be the only.
Definitely. And it is. It's like having that. You say, there's the policies and the frameworks that we all work to, and we get that, don't we? But the world since COVID has changed massively, and not only it's like you always say, when you get all the time speeds up, doesn't it? But that is just happening now in terms of every sector that throughout the college and throughout FE, no matter what sector we're talking about, the gap between industry stakeholders and education is widening a little bit, and we've almost got to attack that, and we've got to say, right, okay, now let's come together and let's start sorting this out. If there is, milestones, and if there is sort of policies that we need to follow, then fine, but let's not be so rigid that we can't actually do what's right and actually apply a bit of common sense here.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think that's okay. And really what I was probably trying to say, it's about simplifying the system, because we understand the system, so we can sort of navigate it and go, right, this is what we're going to achieve, because we understand the system. But actually a lot of employers don't understand the skills and education system, and it's about simplifying the system so actually this can be achieved more easily.
So setting up a framework for collaboration between employers and FE and allowing that to...
Because I think forward-thinking organisations would do that anyway, because we're doing it. But I guess what we want is that we want this to be happening more between employers
and on every level.
On every level and in every sector.
Definitely.
And we're going to sort of make it happen anyway. But there's that simplification of the system that I'd want to get across, that because if we can achieve that will enable that framework to happen more easily.
Definitely. So what does the future hold?
Oh, big party, definitely. So hopefully by the end of this calendar year, or maybe into next calendar year, we'll be operational for the Skills Hub in Kirklees. Then, to be fair, I think the world is oyster, because we want to obviously set up a kind of a regional centre, but we think bigger than that. If we can roll this out, or this model out to the FE, to education, to industry, then that's what we need to do.
We want it to be the number one civil skills hub in the north of England, if not England.
Yeah, damn
and
right.
sharing that best practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a right laugh.
That'll be amazing, guys. That'll be absolutely amazing. Thanks so much for joining us today. You've been really great guests. I've really enjoyed interviewing you.